So this week's episode of Darwin's Game, we finally wrap up the treasure hunt, which has been a pretty lengthy arc in Darwin's Game, but that's not a bad thing, I think. Sometimes I feel like these types of arcs that last a very long time, they can grow stale, they can grow boring, you can kind of feel like, okay, we're in a battle royale death game anime, let's just keep moving to the next objective. But I think that's the mistake most of those series make, where they just speed along to the next thing, never giving the time to flesh out its world, flesh out its mechanics, flesh out its characters. And honestly, I'm glad this death match, this little treasure hunt lasted as long as it did because we saw different waves, different sections of it, and it honestly made it feel like a real event in a mobile game. I mean, how many mobile games can you play where the event lasts a week, a couple of days, a month, right? So if you're actually saying this mobile game is actually sucking them into a real augmented world, of course it would make sense that it would take days to clear an event. And honestly, with the number of characters we met, the battles that we went with, and just the different twists and turns, it didn't feel like 4 episodes or however long it was for this event. It honestly felt like it flew by for me, and I felt like they went out with the appropriate endgame, and honestly have kind of made an enemy that going forward will be even more devastating, which hopefully that alliance will go through towards the end. But I mean, looking Kaname getting ripped and shredded, I mean, it's definitely looking good for him, I will say. But I loved it, I really did. I thought the only real thing that I thought they might mess up is how Kaname would handle the bluff, because clearly he was bluffing with the key. I was under the impression that it was the real key, but he made a copy of it. Turns out it's just a key for his bike rack. But still, everything that he was saying, it was a good bluff. Of course, because we had Ryuji, we knew it was a lie. He was seeing it was a lie. He was seeing what bluffs were working or what was going to basically cause them all death. And I love how the entire purpose was it was a gamble, that when I toss the key, I'm going to put in the passcode into this specific locker, and if that actually is the true objective, the game will be over and we'll all survive. Had that not worked, he would have ended up dead. But honestly, I feel like that's the appropriate route to go, because honestly, had that not been the actual solution, how would have they survived anyway? They would have lost people no matter what, because the battle would have just kept going on. And so like Kaname, he values his friendships and he values his companionships, his clan, and as cliche as that might sound, I mean, you really don't want to tackle this world alone. And the bonds that he did build in this treasure hunt, I think, are very valuable, and you want that to go forward. You don't want him to use a grenade and sacrifice himself when he's not looking. So I thought the entire build up to that bluff, and how we have a clan leader who's not totally an idiot, but he's also not the sharpest tool in the shed. So he wasn't going to just say, okay, you know what, you give me that key, I'll let you both just be on your merry way. No, after enough convincing, I'll let you go, but I'm going to kill this bastard. And I love how Kaname really played it up. He wasn't that cliche, he's my friend, I'm going to make sure he's safe. He's like, screw him. That is something that I've always said about horror films or slasher films or any sort of like villain story where like the big bad person who's doing all this atrocities, they offer you to say, join my side. Why the hell don't you just say, yeah, of course I'll join your side, and when they turn around, you shoot them in the back of the head? That would solve all the issues, but of course you don't want to do that because then you wouldn't have a movie or a story. So the fact that Kaname, as simple as it might sound, was like, screw him, I'm only in it for myself, I loved how he bluffed because that played into the emotions of a deranged lunatic. Like, those little moments honestly shape Kaname into someone who doesn't feel like that generic death battle protagonist, who, yes, he definitely has an overpowered ability in comparison to some of the others, but I mean, hell, character lost their arm, and they got their arm back because of a healing ability. So it kind of feels like a lot of the characters in this show have an overpowered ability, if we're being 100% honest. So it's nice to see that entire dialogue exchange and how I was just confused. I was like, I don't know what he's doing. I thought he was actually tossing the key to let him use a grenade or do something himself, but the fact that they just pinpointed it to that one locker and that's how the game ended, and the fact that he's like, I know your face, and Kaname with like probably the best comeback I've seen in some time. Yeah, but I've already forgot your ugly face. It's simple, it's basic, but you gotta love the sass and the spunk. But I mean, if you're fighting in a situation where you've been forced into conflict, I feel like you're going to be a little more bitter and a little more of an asshole going forward into the future. I honestly thought the reward was just going to be like either an ability or a weapon or maybe just a really good reward, like financially or something. Maybe he could buy something in the stock market or his little gambling market that the others couldn't. But the fact that it was a phone and he actually got to talk to the person who basically designed the overlay, the interface for this game, it was interesting because when you get offered, I will give you anything you want, Like, honestly, at that point in time, you're like, hey, can I eject from this game? Granted, he said no because that would go against his own morals. But the fact that they bring up that it's not even just that you have to win the game to either exit and succeed, you can also kill the creators. And that's definitely, I feel like, the direction they're going. But it's going to be curious and interesting to see what it is that he went for, what he asked for, because obviously they weren't going to show us. That's going to be something that is going to appear later into the game. But the fact that Kaname was kind of like contemplating like a way to pretty much keep other people out, I'm curious if like before like you join the Darwins game, maybe he did something with the app so like basically the game's still active, but like maybe you have to hit OK and confirm after reading of terms of service or something. I don't know, like maybe he did something like that, or maybe he did something for his clan. Obviously we could sit here and speculate all day, but the fact that he did get a reward to that caliber I think is going to be very interesting, and I'm excited to see whenever we do see it. Because honestly, even if this doesn't get a second season after probably a year or so, I'll probably check out the manga eventually. So eventually I'll see what it is no matter what. But honestly, it was nice to see that not only did he pretty much get everything that he could possibly want, he got the finances. Hell, they're buying a literal entire building for their clan headquarters because Shuka has that much cash alone. Like, I mean, it just feels like the financial gains that you can get in a single event in the game alone, it's understandable why people would be intoxicated into willingly joining Darwin's game, because literally after 2 matches you could be a millionaire in this show. Like, I mean, that's kind of insane. But it's nice to see that there's just so many different rewards, and the fact that Kaname actually got to talk to the person in charge and really speak his mind. It was nice that we already got something like that, because usually I'm used to that maybe being towards the end of the story or the end of a season or something like that. And sure, we only have a few episodes left of Darwin's game, but still it did feel like it's happening a lot sooner than what I'm at least typically used to. Granted, I don't watch all the death battle anime out there, so maybe it's a little more common than I'm used to, but still, it was a nice change of pace there. And just to see the aftermath and see what was happening, I really was curious where you go next, because I thought it was pretty damn clear that these groups were going to stick together, that they were going to continue to be a clan. I mean, it would be stupid for them not to, especially after seeing what Kaname was able to pull off. But the fact that we not only had just the idea of the florist and how the insurance money, right, and how we have our girl, the analyst, just kind of like watching and making sure that she's taken care of, because she did promise to make sure. And it was nice to see that that wasn't something that was completely brushed to the side, saying, oh, you know, this was a character who didn't join our main cast, so we don't have to really care or focus in on his family. And you're used to that, not even just in an anime like this, just anime in general. If it's not a part of the main cast, you have to piece it together in your head. But the fact that she gave her that money, and the fact that she was, you know, angry about it as if it was a cruel joke, not wanting to really say that's okay, just that entire conversation and build-up was amazing, I thought. It was great to see 2 characters who, I mean, the father himself kind of saw a lot inside her within his own daughter, so it was nice to see how they got a little bit of a bonding moment, and how she was very scared to even want to try to attempt to cash in that check, as rightfully you should be scared. At first she was very like normal, as if she didn't care her dad was dead, but it was more of like she didn't believe it, and why should she? A random person came and dropped off a check that is more than she could possibly hope for? Like, that just can't be true. And it's interesting how she gave her the option to call her and inquire about more information, which you know that's going to pop up at some point in time. So that's a nice content in itself. I mean, they could have just forgotten about the sickly daughter, and most anime fans would probably be like, oh, who cares, you know, that's not part of the action, so they would be able to get by with that. But the fact that the author went in the direction of saying, like, things aren't actually forgettable, and characters' motivations for playing this D game are actually important, it brings a smile to your face. It really, really does. And just the simplistic moments, like, when we had that 3 Little Pigs story being told, at first, you know, it's been a while since I heard the 3 Little Pigs, so I was like, huh, you know, this seems a little weird. I thought after each of the homes were kind of blown down or destroyed, they just moved to the next one. But you're telling me you're eating them, you're just smashing the wall in? I was thinking to myself, what in the actual hell? Was this like the original version that was just a little more twisted? It's just those little moments where characters can be so warped and twisted, and it's all just her talking about wanting to buy a home and how she would decide which building to buy because you want to be the wolf, not the pigs. Like, you just kind of think to yourself sometimes, the personalities in this show are so twisted and warped. But then again, when you're playing a game like this where literally your life is on the line for financial gains or a wish or something like that, it's so interesting to see how just characters who are on our side, we just kind of think, holy shit, it's a good thing they're on our side, because if we were approaching that as a boss, we would think that is one of the most twisted characters in the series. But it's just interesting. I love that. I love how just instead of forgetting about characters, either if they're dead or there's just, you know, we haven't seen them for a while and they're still alive, it's nice how Kaname is kind of like rising to the occasion and just things aren't being forgotten. The fact that we're fighting for an alliance is a good thing. I mean, you literally made a mortal enemy out of one of the most dangerous people, probably one of the most dangerous peoples in D-game. You don't really want to go at it alone. The fact that as a reward for everything that he's done, he's helped his comrade get his arm back. I mean, I'm not mad about there being a healing sigil. I'm glad, in fact, that there is. I mean, we're in a world with so many mechanics, it's completely understandable some character would have an ability like that. And the fact that he's been training himself to make sure that he's a competent leader, and now he's going to have to get into a little bit of a rumble to prove that he's worthy of joining an alliance with. I mean, you gotta love Darwin's game. You really do. I feel like it's avoiding most of the missteps that are going to bother most people. At worst, people might complain about the production from time to time, but I mean, look at the core things that truly matter. And it really does feel like it's avoiding all the common missteps that most series in a genre like this typically make. Honestly, the characters, they just don't bother me across the board. Even the villains who they get under your skin. It just feels as if it's good that they're a part of the game because they make it just all the more frightening and impactful, especially when you go up against them. I don't know, it's just the show continues to entertain me, and it really doesn't feel like it's making any of the common mistakes or at least it's not making any of the common mistakes to enough of a degree that it ruins an episode. Like, I mean, they bring up fan service from time to time, they bring up some cheesy one-liners from time to time, but like, they don't do any of the main things that are going to ruin a series in the long run, because all the characters are interesting in some way and actually have a personality that seemingly develops. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. What did you think? Favorite moment? Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you happen new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.